Hello and welcome to Read the Last Page,
A yap session
book club.
with your two favorite long-distance best friends.
The book we read this month is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern.
Yes. And since we finally read the last page, let's talk about it. Hi, B. How are you?
I'm good. As you know, I literally just finished this book.
You really did.
Less than an hour ago. But I mean, so that's what I've been doing recently is reading this book.
Yeah.
But let me tell you one quick little anecdote.
Yeah.
So there's these shoes I've been wanting for a long time, for months, like since the summer. And they're very, very popular. And so they were like sold out everywhere. And like I went to all these different stores, blah, blah, blah. Then yesterday I went to a dance class and I went to Trader Joe's and I was walking home and I was passing this kid shoe store and I saw the shoes in the window. And I was like, let me go in there and see if they fit. And they did. So I got them.
She got them.
Let me show.
Wait, so they're children's shoes? And you just fit into a
Yeah,
children's
they're
size?
like technically, children's size. So they're a 4.5.
Okay.
Which I'm like wondering if that's like the men's size or the boys' size. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there they are.
Cute. Blue. Beautiful.
Yeah. These colors are so me. And so I'm super excited. They also were much, much cheaper than I was expecting them to be. They were still expensive. Okay, they were still expensive. Mm-hmm. But I told myself like it was okay for me to spend like a certain amount of money on them, and it was like $50-$60 less than I was like okay with.
Yeah.
Like the top of my budget, you know? So
yeah.
I was very happy.
Yay. Oh my god, that's so exciting.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that.
Wait, sweet. Weren't you talking about these shoes in a like previous podcast episode that we did?
Probably.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because when Sage was here, like he had a pair of Adidas shoes and we really wanted to like match. Mm-hmm. And so we spent like an afternoon like going to like the Adidas stores and all the like regular shoe stores. Like we went to all these places and they were sold out of women's. At the time I was looking for a women's size 7, but I guess technically I probably am like a 6.5. And they were like, yeah, the smallest we have is 7.5 and 8 in every color. Like everything else below that was sold out in every color. Because like I was just gonna try. I was like, I'll just try on a pair so I know what size and I can like order them online, because I saw them on like eBay or like stuff like that, or Facebook Marketplace. But I couldn't even find a pair to try on.
Yeah.
Just in any color, just to see the size. Like they didn't have 6.5s anywhere.
Right.
So anyways, yeah, I'm super, super excited about that. Unfortunately, I have to wear all black to
work.
my job.
Yeah.
But whenever I'm, gonna go walk the streets in New York to look cute, I'll be putting them on.
Cute. Well, yeah, I'm so happy you found them. That's so serendipitous.
I know. It felt like fate, honestly. Because the guy said that they like had just gotten them in.
Amazing.
And I was like, well, I came in at the perfect time then.
It's so New York to like walk past a window storefront and be like, those are the shoes. That's so incredible.
Well, and what's funny is I didn't even need to go down that block. Like I where the Trader Joe's is that I go to, like Broadway and Amsterdam like cross each other, and it's like, so I was thinking I was on Broadway, but it's like technically I was on Amsterdam because they're crossing right there, and I needed to stay on Amsterdam, but in my head I was thinking I was on Broadway, so I was like, I need to go over a block. So I went over a block that I didn't need to go. So I didn't even, like, I technically shouldn't have walked past the store.
They were siren calling you.
Right? Like, there was a pole.
That's amazing.
So, yeah. And I also then I was on a different street that I needed to be on, and there was, like, one of those stores, it's called Paper Source. Oh, They sell, like, all this kind of, paper type products. And I got a new planner for next year. I'll show it to you better. And it was 50% off. And it has my planners have to be like vertical,
Okay.
like that, and it was vertical, and the lines in it kind of remind me of like old book, like library checkout cards, you know.
Oh, cute. Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it on our Zoom very well, but anyways, so again, I was just like having such a good day yesterday, low-key going on like a little shopping spree.
That's so cute.
So yeah. So anyways, I'm doing good. And how are you?
Great. What have I been doing? Well, first of all, I got a new TV, which is so exciting.
Oh.
I know. I've been telling my roommates for months, because so when you live with people for a long time, we just like know like some people are responsible for some things, and like as far as like contributing to the household. And so one of the things I did when I came to the household was I brought a TV for all of us.
Like the one in the living room?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that TV though has been with us for like 6 years, and when I got it was already kind of old. So it's been like kind of breaking down on us. Not breaking down, but just like the quality is not great. It's been time for a new TV, and I've been telling my roommates for like ever. Like I'm like, I'm gonna buy a new one. Like I'll buy a new one. And finally, like for Black Friday, I was like, this is kind of the time to buy a TV. You know, like it's like everyone buys TVs like during Black Friday.
Yeah.
So I got a new TV. Very exciting. It looks great. First thing I did when I got it, I pulled up the Wicked trailer and I watched Wicked.
Okay.
Because guys, by the way, I saw Wicked on Thanksgiving. It's everything to me. I actually can't. My mic today is pink in honor of Wicked. It's like that.
You should have told me. I would have put the green one on.
Do you have the green one?
I think so, but it's gonna be I don't know where it is, but it's buried somewhere.
Real. Well, yeah. I love her.
Yeah.
It was just yeah. It's like one of those movies that I remember. When I was watching it, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. And then like I went home and I was like, yeah, that was good. And as time has gone on, I'm just like, I can't stop thinking about it. Like, I'm just like, I have to see it again. And I have to like really unpack my thoughts about it. Because it's so fun and like emotional. Strangely emotional. Actually, every time I think about part 2, I tear up. Because I just know what's coming. Like, I actually can't do that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just great. I think you would really like it, actually, Laura.
Yeah. I need to see it.
Yeah, you'd like it.
It's just, yeah. After buying those shoes, and I just bought, like, I'm doing like 3 different like dance intensives this winter.
Yeah.
And Rent just came out today. Like, my bank account is looking scary.
Please, miss, please.
So I need to see if any of the theaters around me have like the ones where we're from. It's like $5, $6 Tuesdays. Like I need to see if there's anything like that around here.
Yeah.
Because like I can do it Tuesday afternoon. Like no problem.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
So I need to look into that. But I also really want to see The Wild Robot. Like I've been me and my friend have been trying to coordinate that, and so it feels like I don't know, it feels like I need to see that first. Like if I'm going to the movie theater,
it's probably leaving soon.
Right.
Have I talked to you about The Wild Robot at all?
No, but Catherine texted me and told me that I should watch it.
Oh, that's so random.
We were texting about something else. And then I don't even remember what exactly. I don't know. I think there was like a podcast at my job, and I was like, it was some history podcast. So I was like, hey, have you like heard of this? Because I just thought she might have. And then since we were texting, then she was like, by the way, we just saw The Wild Robot. You should really see it. I think you'll really like it.
I'm so surprised I haven't talked to you about it, because it like literally altered my brain chemistry.
Yeah.
Like,
well, don't.
I'm not going to say anything. I won't say anything. It's so good. I think about it honestly every single day. Like I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, wow, that movie. You would really like it. Yeah, that's a good one.
We honestly should do more like movie segments on
for sure. I feel like all we do on here is talk about like movies and musicals. And then we're like, I guess we can talk about books. But true,
on our
we
book
should.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this book, I was not aware that it was so large, everybody,
Yeah.
and I didn't pick it up from the library until like the 20th of November, thinking, "Oh, but 10 days, no problem." Yeah, it was a problem.
Yeah, this book is thick.
Yeah,
Thicker than I thought it was going to
and
be.
I feel like there was a lot. It's just like a lot, so it's one of those books where like I would try to read it at work sometimes, but like, so when I get to work, like we like sit around for like 20 minutes until we get like called for our like meeting kind of. And so people are yapping and doing stuff on their phones and whatnot and whatnot. And it's not really a good environment for
Locking
this
in.
type of reading,
Yeah.
where it's like you need to really pay attention to the details and soak in the language and this and that. It was like totally fine for like some of our other like more just like YA realistic fiction books,
Yeah.
because it's just like, oh, and now we're back with our characters. But this was like,
Oh my god, this book.
I couldn't like, I could barely get through a page because I would have to keep rereading.
Yeah.
Because there was just like so much happening around me, I couldn't like lock in those conditions.
No,
So
that's a really
that put me behind.
that's a really good point. No, honestly, like the only reason why I got through this book so quickly, which I actually didn't get through it very quickly. I finished it yesterday. So
Right.
like,
I'm
you
like,
know.
what do you mean quick?
But like faster, like usually it's like I was a good chunk of the way through until yesterday, you know what I mean? And then I was like, "Oh, I'm actually kind of behind. I got to pick up." But the only reason why I actually was kind of keeping pace was because I want this is going to sound so mean. I wanted to be over so badly because
no.
I could not find I could not I was like I was so exhausted, I think, by like the type of book this is. Do you know what I mean? That I kind of like I wanted to be done with it so that way I could go back to like books I usually read.
Yeah.
It was just which we'll get into it I guess more so, but like it was a tough book I think to read for this month, especially with like it's a busy month. Like November's a kind
Yeah.
of busier month, and so I'm like kind of like I wish I had better circumstances I think to read the book.
That's how I feel too, because I did really like this, but I feel like I didn't get
Yeah.
to give it the time and attention and care that it deserves. Because guys, I literally finished it an hour ago.
Yeah.
And so like that made me sad, like just at myself, because I was like, I could have gotten this book on the first of the month and like had a full month to actually read it and not felt so rushed. Like that's on me, you know. But like a lot of our book club books, like I've been reading in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was reading a different book like after Donuts, then I picked up a different book and I was like, oh, I'll just finish this before I get this one. Well, then I went and picked this up from the library and I immediately stopped my other book because I was like, I can't finish that other one first.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta get into this.
Yeah.
So like, I wish I could go back in time and
Yeah, give
have
yourself.
actually 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is what it is. I
Yeah.
read it now. So yeah. So how do we give a synopsis of this book? This book, like there's so much going on in this. So
yeah.
do you want me to try? I feel
Yeah,
like-
if you can.
Okay. It's like about a guy who's in college in 2015.
Yeah.
He's a video game major, if that right?
Yeah.
So then he is in the library. He finds this book that has all these short stories in it, and one of them is about him. It doesn't explicitly say his name, but he knows that the little boy in that book that is described, like the scene that they describe happened exactly to him. So now he's like really confused how this book that seems like it was written so long ago is like depicting an exact scenario from his life. So he kind of goes on a scavenger hunt or a deep dive of like trying to figure out who wrote this book, where did it come from, why, what's going on. That leads him to a literary charity ball in Manhattan. sorry, my water bottle fell. Where he meets some people that
yeah.
are involved in sort of a secret society type thing, a different world that he is not yet aware of but is about to become aware of.
Yeah.
And so they kind of take him to this place that he didn't know exists, and he's trying to figure out what it is. Why is he there? Why do some people know about this and not everybody? What is his reason for being there, and why was a detail like scene in his life depicted in a book that has no author? And the whole time this story is being told, you're also reading the book that he got from the library that has that scene. Like, you're going in between the character Zachary Ezra Rollins' life and a chapter from that book, back and forth, back and forth. And then this whole book is split into, I think, 6 parts. And or 7 if you count like the ending. So each new part, it goes back and forth between like Zachary Ezra Rollins and whatever book is important at that time. So at first it's Sweet Sorrows, then it's Fortunes and Fables, and then the Ballad of
Simon and Eleanor.
Simon and Eleanor. And then like some other stuff. So it's you're reading like the present day events, and then you're reading like accounts of other things that are happening, and you're not quite sure what the relationship is between all of that. But as it goes on, you kind of start to see, wait, this character, we read about them over there. Wait, this sounds like this situation. So it's kind of like things are intertwined that at first don't seem like they would be. Yeah. And so it's just about him figuring out what this place is, why is he there, and what's his purpose, basically.
Yeah, I think this is, well, first of all, that was really good. So thank you. Thank you for you added details that I honestly was like, oh yeah, that is pretty important. It's a good thing to add. Anyway, but I think this is a fun book to read if you're a lover of books. If you like if you like books that understand the importance of stories, and it's just like, it's a real book for book lovers.
Again, I wish I had given myself more time to read this, because I feel like this is a book that would be really good for like late night reading with the candles. Like, read a couple chapters and then think about it the next day, and then read a little bit more and then think about it the next day. Like, and like immersing yourself and letting the story like take time, like time in your life. I feel like that is like, that is probably the proper way to read this.
I didn't see that. I wish I did that.
Me too.
For sure. Yeah. But I will say, yesterday when I finished it, it was snowing outside. It was snowing when I woke up, and it snowed throughout the whole day. And it was so nice. I don't have an actual fireplace, so I had a little fake fire space heater thing that gives me that fake fire.
Wait, you should put on Olaf's
Yule log. I love that. I love it. But truly, I had the fake fireplace going, and I had my window blinds open, and I was just like watching the snow and reading, and it was really nice. I was like, this is kind of the perfect atmosphere. Truly.
Yeah, I do feel like this was definitely a good pick for November.
Yeah. It's a real winter read.
Yeah, it's very like stay inside and read a book vibes. We can chit chat a little bit before we get to like spoiler time. Overall, I loved the writing style of the separate parts and the like a different book for each one. I loved it. I loved going back and forth. The chapters that were from like the books, like Sweet Sorrows and Fortunes and Fables and all that kind of stuff, it reminded me of like Over the Garden Wall. Like, you know how each each episode is like its own self-contained story, but it's like, but in the end they're all woven together.
Yeah.
Like, I love that so much.
Yeah, that's
so
a really,
really
good.
love that.
That's a really good example. I was thinking it was kind of it felt a little bit like a Studio Ghibli film to me. Like I was just thinking a lot of like Howl's Moving Castle. Mostly because like the vibes. Yeah, I love that movie. Mostly because the vibes, but also like it's kind of also that type of feeling where like not a lot of things make sense to you on the first read through, or just like as you're kind of going through it, and then things start coming together like pretty seamlessly as you're like going through the movie.
Yeah.
And I mean this is like, it's like, I think that this is a real like trust the process type of book. So yeah, so like a lot of things don't make sense at first, but when they come together I think it's pretty satisfying.
Right. I agree. I don't know. I feel like that's just what the non-readers get.
Well, okay, I will say, because like, so we have somebody here who's advocating for the book. You like it a lot. I went into the book thinking I was going to love it. It's like, for a heads up, it's like my roommate's favorite book. She's been telling me for like 3 years that I should read it. And so I finally was like, okay, I'm going to read it this winter. It feels like a good time. And then I like kind of realized very quickly, about 100 pages in, that I was like, I don't think this book is for me. But I was like trying really hard to hold on and be like, well, I don't know, maybe it'll like kind of start connecting and I'll like care about it. And it never clicked for me. So I actually kind of had a pretty not fun reading experience with this book, because the whole time I felt very weirdly detached from everything that was going on. I feel like I was just kind of reading words on the page to read the words on the page. Do you know what I mean? Okay. So I just want to tell people, if you've never read this book before and you're thinking about reading this book, there are a few things you need to know that like I feel like would be kind of maybe good. Good morning. So like, first of all, it's like a slow burn. Like this book is like not a book that is going to like maybe make sense or like jump off the page at you immediately, unless if you're really intrigued by like the writing and the atmosphere that's being created. So like it takes a long time for things to start making sense, which I think is really satisfying in the end. But like also like it's just like, if you don't have the patience for that, like you need to have a bit of patience for this book to kind of really work for you. And then it's also like more vibes than plot, I would say.
Yeah.
Which isn't
it's
bad.
A lot about the atmosphere.
For sure. If you're somebody who likes books that are very atmospheric, very lyrical, very whimsical, for sure, I think you'd vibe with this book a lot. If you're somebody who like prefers more plot / character based stories where like they're at the forefront of things going on, I actually don't know if this would be the book for you. Because like that's kind of how I am. Like I'm somebody who like I need to really deeply care about like the emotional connections that the people on the page are having, and therefore that's how I relate and connect to the story. This I don't think gave me anything until maybe about 50% of the way through, and then I was like, okay, like I'm kind of starting to like the characters and the dynamics. It's a lot of jumping back and forth, and so it's like, I think if you're somebody who maybe likes a consistent plot with consistent character arcs.
You sound so annoying.
Really? Oh no, you guys. This is just my personal opinion. Peace and love to Erin Morgenstern.
So Danielle and I have not had a chance to talk about this.
No.
Because I'm telling you, I literally just finished the book, and then I was like, okay, let me like brush my hair and send you the Zoom link and we'll start.
Yeah.
So this is probably the most not on the same page
we've ever
been.
Laura, you're gonna be so this is my least favorite book we've read for the book club.
What?
It is.
What?
I 100%
so crazy.
I know. I 100% get what Erin Morgenstern was trying to do with this though. Like it's like she was trying to write like a speculative fiction type of book that's like so much more about the structure and the form of stories and kind of what you can do with prose and storytelling. And that contributes so much to the actual what the meaning of the book is and kind of how important the idea of storytelling is in this book, and also like for Erin Morgenstern as a writer, if that makes sense. And so I understand why she did it. I just felt so weirdly disconnected, and I think it's just because the book's just not for me, and that's totally fine. There's actually a quote. Let me read you a quote. Listen, there's
what my least favorite one is that we've read this.
Oh yeah, Tress.
Yeah,
this actually reminded me a lot of Tress, weirdly enough. And I think the things I had, the at least the criticisms I had for Tress are the same criticisms I have for this book. So, which is interesting.
Yeah. For me though, like Tress of the Emerald Sea was just like boring. To me, this wasn't boring.
Yeah, this was
maybe it was to you.
Yeah,
I was so bored reading. Okay, anyways, enough about that one. Let's hear your quote.
So there's a quote and it says, this is on page 220, by the way. She found she no longer minded that the stories would linger, that some enjoyed them and others did not. But this is the nature of a story. Not all stories speak to all listeners, but all listeners can find a story that does, somewhere, sometime, in one form or another. And that's my thesis statement of the episode.
She gave you permission to not be obsessed with it, and that's okay.
Yeah, like literally, like, and I appreciate that because it's like, I think Erin Morgenstern is somebody who loves stories, and you can feel the love for storytelling jump off this page. And she has such an interesting, beautiful control over language where like she really wants to uniquely give the readers a unique story and unique prose that isn't supposed to be easy and quick to read. Like you said earlier, like it's a book that's supposed to linger with you, that you're supposed to take time and fully absorb. And there are not a lot of books, honestly, that I think do this. Specifically, books that I think are coming out currently. I don't know. We don't need to go into the whole entire book publishing industry currently, but like I think it's harder to find books that are like this than like, you know, those quick read, fun little books that you see all over Book Talk or whatever. And so I think this book is meant to challenge you. And it would be so mean of me, though, to come on here and be like, I don't like this book because I was bored and I don't have the patience for it. Like, who cares? Who cares? But like, I appreciate it for what it is. I just could not find myself connecting to like almost any of it, because it was, I think, mostly just beautiful atmosphere and beautiful prose. And there is story and there is character and there is plot. But I felt more so like she was telling me how important these characters are and how important the plot is. But I was like, smooth brain. Literally, I don't know. Nothing's getting in.
So to me, it reminded me of, and I don't read a lot of books like this, but it reminded me of older books like almost. And you know what? I still haven't finished reading Little Women, but that's a different story.
You know what? Go off, yeah.
But you know how Little Women is like, and I can't speak because I haven't finished it, but a lot of it is just like, okay, like they're just doing stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I feel like I remember reading this book when I was younger that was also like an older book called All of a Kind Family, and it was just like, they're just doing stuff. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of older style, like like fairy tales are like, and the curse was this and the kingdom was this, and it's just like, it's not always so like I feel like so much stuff now is very like, there's a reason behind everything and we're going to tell you the exact reason behind everything, and like this is how it all connects into blah blah blah. And so I feel like this book was sort of like a fairy tale where it was just like, the Owl King is this and the sword is for this and the this and this, and it's just like, and these are all these things, and it's a fantastical fairy tale, and it wasn't about like there being a specific reason why all of this happened. It was just like, enjoy this magical fairy tale where all of this happened. So I realized that while reading it, and I let myself just be like, I'm just gonna like take it as like a telling, like a very descriptive and long-winded in a good way, like telling of a fairy tale, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
As opposed to like something that's like going to dive deep into the specifics of every single person and why they did this and where it came from, and if that makes sense.
Yeah, so like I mean, I think it definitely is a book that like you have to kind of relinquish control. Again, like it's like the first 3 chapters of this book, you're kind of going through 3 stories that are not like our main character's linear timeline story. And so right off the bat you're like, what? Like the first line of this book is like, there's a pirate or something, or he's a metaphor, and hang on, let me actually okay. There is a pirate in the basement. The pirate is a metaphor, but also still a person. The basement could rightly be considered a dungeon. Like, that's one of those lines that, like, I remember reading it. I was like, wait, right off the bat, what are we talking about? And then the next chapter is a completely different story. And then the next chapter is a completely different story. And then the next chapter, we get into Zachary Ezra Rollins, who's our main character. And it's just, like, a book that, like, we've already talked about this, like, a bunch. But, like, again, it's going back and forth so much that you just have to kind of like let it unspool for you.
Yeah.
And
I have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead. No, finish.
Well, I was just gonna say I think that's totally fine. I understand why it works for a lot of people. I don't think I just had the patience for it, and I was like looking for something to grab onto that I would like other than the prose. And I like just couldn't find anything that I really personally cared about enough to keep going. Which is why I think this book was a hard read for me, because then I was just like reading pages to read pages. Like I wasn't fully connecting to anything.
Okay. Makes sense. That's valid for you. It's not how I feel, but it's valid for you. Do you not like fairy tales?
I'm coming to learn that I do not, because listen.
I can tell.
Yeah, because listen, so that's my whole thing about Tress of the Emerald Sea is like a typical fairy tale.
No.
And I understood
in my opinion it's not, but okay.
Sure, go off. But anyway, but Brandon Sanderson, I understood what he was trying to do, and I understood that like this was, like I think I could see where he was getting inspiration from. It felt like it was like The Princess Bride, which The Princess Bride is typical fairy tale, and I like that movie a lot. But
I've only seen it once.
Yeah. I've only seen it once too. I really like it though. Really but like it just, I don't think I like I don't think, you know what else it reminded me of? There's a book by Neil Gaiman called Ocean at the End of the Lane that I had to read when I was in my creative writing course in college. And that is 1000% kind of the vibes of like what's going on here, where it's like, we're just like following this boy and he's telling us these kind of like it felt like a fever dream to me, like almost like kind of like, and then this happened, and then there was a scary witch, but the witch was also just the neighbor, and this is the I don't actually remember the plot so well, so that I don't think that happened, but
wait, what?
But like that was kind of like the feeling that I felt for that book too, where I was just like, and I thought that it was just because I had to write like paper on paper about like about this book, and I was like, I think it's taking the fun out of it. But truly, I actually just think maybe this isn't the vibe for me, which is like totally fine. But now I know something about myself.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And I'm not saying, like, this is not my favorite book that we've read on our podcast. But I did like it, and I do have a few critiques. But my biggest thing is like, I wish that I would have had a full entire month or 2 to read it, and then I feel like I could view it through a better lens, if that makes sense. Yeah. Because I did feel like I got tired while reading it, but I feel like that's because I was reading 150 pages at once. Yeah. And if I would have been reading 30 to 50 at once, like that would have been a lot more like enjoyable for the read. So I'm having a hard time feeling like, what, like, do I, like, are my criticisms because I read this in like a week and a half? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's also what I think it is too, because like for me at least, because I realized, like I said earlier, around 100 pages in, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna actually like this book. And then I was like, I have 400 more pages to go. and I had like a week to finish, and I was like, okay, let me chug on through. And so I was reading like huge chunks at a time, and like it was definitely taking a lot of the fun out of it, which is unfortunate and totally my fault. Sorry,
because
Erin.
I think because it's more of an atmospheric book.
Yeah.
There isn't need for rush through.
Yeah.
When I think about something like The Hunger Games, hopefully everyone here has read that. It's like I remember reading that feverishly fast because it's like the plot and what is happening to the characters as they progress through is like, that is what is important.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that makes sense to read it within a few days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't think this book is meant to be read like that. And so I'm, I'm just like, I feel I'm mad at myself for doing that.
Well, there you go. Readers, if you guys have yet to read this book and like you're curious about it, take it from us. Give yourself the space and time.
Yeah, take time.
Take your time with this. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's all to say, you guys. Sorry, this is so weird. I've never come on this podcast to like staunchly be like no to a book.
Well, that's how I felt about Tress, but I wasn't sure if we could. So I was very like tiptoeing around. But now I wish I just would have been honest.
Yeah, I know. You should have. It just feels weird because I feel like we're on different sides of the spectrum, and so I'm like, so it feels like I'm arguing with you, but I'm not trying to argue.
I don't feel like we're arguing.
Okay.
We're just having passionate discussion.
Yeah, which also it's like I think both of us, because I just know this from like sometimes when we're sending voice messages back and forth, we'll get like really like ramped up, like we'll amp ourselves up, and then we'll be like, sorry, like I don't know why I'm getting this passionate about something that truly is not that deep. Like it's like I'm not mad at all that I read this book. I'm actually really happy that I read it because I think it challenged me in a way that a lot of the other books that I've been reading lately haven't been challenging me. And I don't read a lot of books that like challenge me prose wise, if that makes sense. Like I like to read a lot of books where like the character's emotional arc is like the main kind of challenge of the story, where it's like I'm confronting more so what my internal morals are and like what I think about these characters. But like the prose was what really felt difficult for me when reading this, because it's like it's incredibly whimsical and lyrical and like almost at times like purposely overwritten, to kind of like add to the experience of reading this book and kind of what Erin Morgenstern wanted to do, which I know like I liked at a lot of times, but it also exhausted me a lot. And I think it's because I was challenging myself so much, and it just reminded me that I'm like, hey, maybe I should be trying to read books that have more difficult prose, just so like if a book like this, like, because I think maybe in another universe I could really like this book. And I just like I said, maybe I just didn't give myself enough time. Maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace this month. Maybe I don't relate to the characters or the story right now. But like, I think in 10, 15 years, I could pick it up and have a completely different opinion about it, So that's what I'm going to say about this book.
Yeah.
I do think you should try it out if it sounds really interesting, because it's a very beloved book. Like, I know plenty of people who like this book.
My friend that I say has read like every book under the sun. I was like, I'm reading a book right now. I think you'd really like it. And I said, The Starless Sea. And she said, yeah, I've read it.
Of course she has. I love that.
She's read every book.
I need to know her Goodreads. I want to stalk her.
I'll ask her if she has one.
Please do. And let me know if it's chill if I stalk her on there.
Yeah. Okay, I'll find out.
Okay, sweet.
But yeah, I would say like the good things about it is if you like whimsy and you like something different and something intricate and something that's something that I wrote down is I said like this book is more like my type of mystery. Like I was thinking about we read the train one. Everyone on this train. And like we were both kind of like, like I don't really know. This is like really like I'm not really so into mystery, but I feel like this book, you would not categorize this as a mystery book, okay? But there are things that are unclear, like Dan was saying, like you are reading multiple things and you're like not really sure what the relevance is, or you're just sometimes not sure what's going on.
Yeah.
And it felt a little bit mysterious, like, who are these people? Why are they there? What is this place? And like I was writing down notes while I was reading, like, wait, is this person this person? Wait, is she right now talking to the daughter of this person? Like I was like trying to like find the connections and piece together like whose story was intertwined and where was this character showing up again. And so if you like stuff like that, like that's another good, like that's a perk if that sounds interesting to you. And like that is a type of mystery that I enjoy more. I guess not so much of like a murder mystery, but who are these people and why are we here type of mystery.
Like you said something earlier where it was like he's going on like almost like a treasure hunt of sorts. Scavenger hunt is what you said. I think I think like a magical scavenger hunt is like the perfect way to describe like that mysterious feeling that you get in this book. Like you're just like, what does that mean and what could this be, and etc. etc.
Because it's all new to him, so it's also new to us as the reader,
for sure.
You know.
Yeah.
And then like we're kind of getting to read the books sort of at the same time that he's reading them, so like you can kind of start to piece things together at the same time he does, which I thought was really cool. That I really, really liked.
Yeah, it's kind of like when, like, you know, when you're playing like a video game or something and like you come across like a crumpled letter on the ground and you get to read it.
Don't you think that was intentional?
Yeah, for sure.
He's a
video games.
Yeah. There's so much in this book that reminded me of Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh, for
like
sure.
Like the Legend of Zelda game, which is crazy because this book came out, I'm pretty sure, in 2019. And okay, I've only played in Zelda verse, I've only played Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, so guys, I don't know the full lore, but but like some of the stuff that was happening, I was like, this is so like Link and stuff in the Tears of the Kingdom, but it's like that game hadn't come out yet, you know. I don't know, I thought that was fun because I knew that he was like a video game guy, and I was like, this is reminding me of my literal like favorite video game. So
that's really cute. Wait, yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good place to end though for the non-spoiler section.
Yeah, me too. I've been talking non-spoiler for a long time, so
I know.
I hope that gave you guys enough to decide whether or not you want to pick this up.
Yeah. Okay, so from here on forward, like we're gonna talk more about specific details and things that happened later in the book, so spoiler warning if you haven't read it.
Yeah,
just you never know what we might say.
Yeah, exactly. So goodbye if you want to leave. We will see you next episode. Okay.
Okay, I'm looking at my notes here. Okay, let me just say, since we were just talking about Zelda, one of the things that reminded me, this is for all my Zelda fans out there, he literally towards the end of the book, he gives the sword, Zachary gives the sword to Dorian, but then Dorian like kind of fades away. It's like they're in two different places, two different times. That literally happens
in Zelda
at the beginning of Tears of the Kingdom. Like you do, this is spoiler for Tears of the Kingdom if you haven't played, but it's like the beginning part of the game. But Link gives, or no. Yeah. Link's sword is broken. He like hands it to Zelda, and then she like disappears and goes back like 1,000 years, 10,000 years in the past.
My God.
I was like, this is literally like, it was crazy to me reading that. Like, I was like, this is so Link and Zelda.
Wait, when did Tears of the Kingdom come out? Is that
2022?
Okay,
or no,
gotcha.
2023.
Gotcha. I was wondering because I was like, I wonder if Erin Morgenstern, because it feels like she kind of maybe has to be, but like I was wondering what her relationship is to video games, and so I was like, oh, maybe she played Tears of the Kingdom, but I guess that's way too new. So.
The sword, but like the sword that seals the darkness is like in all of the Zelda
in the whole
games. I'm pretty sure. I don't think that happens in all of them, but like the sword is very important in all of them. Right. So I was thinking maybe like that's where I'm sure there's a million video games though that have swords that are
Probably.
important. But I would like, I'm just speaking from my experience. Like I thought maybe this is like, maybe that's why a sword was so important in this one.
Yeah, a text to video game connection. We haven't yet to get
you
that.
You know it. You know I got so many. Actually, let me tell you my favorite text to musical connection.
Okay, go off.
The very ending of this book.
Yeah.
Reminds me of the very ending of Pippin. Because at the end of Pippin, Pippin and they're going to finally leave their crazy people and they're like, we're not doing this anymore, like goodbye. And then their little son walks out and he's like, join us. Or I forgot, that's not what he sings.
Oh, wait, I just remember the ending of Pippin.
But whatever he sings, you know.
Yeah.
Like, rivers belong where they can ramble. And then all the people come in. And it's like, it was like Cat, is that her name, Cat?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Cat, like, going in.
Yeah.
And then another harbor opens. And it's like,
yeah. Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's like the show's gonna go on. Like, it's like, this isn't the end. Oh, I love, like, that. I will say, I love a cyclical narrative like that. Where it's just like, it's completely open to whatever you want to kind of envision going forward. But, like, it's a pretty clear nod that, like, stories never die.
Happening. Yeah.
So,
well, and the reason that I really liked it is because, and I feel like you will agree with part of this sentiment, I also was thinking, like, why do we care about Zachary Ezra Rollins? Like, what is making him so special and unique? Like, why is he the one that, you know, this is about?
He's the chosen one.
Right. But then, to me, the ending kind of showed that he wasn't necessarily so unique and special. This is something that's like people after people after people will stumble their way into this and find their way into this, and we just happen to read his account
story,
you know. So I kind of like that.
It's kind of comforting to actually think about it like that, because it's just like, again, it's like this whole book I feel like is talking about just like the importance of stories, and how if you kind of strip stories away from all the I don't know how to say this, but like all the extravagance, like if you take them off the paper, if you take them away from the books, if you take them out of spoken words or people's mouths, stories are just us as people, and we're all storytellers, and we all kind of have that story within us. And it's just like, it's nice to know that Zachary is just kind of like, almost in a way, like used as, this probably isn't the right term to use, but kind of like a self-insert for us in a way. Like we could see ourselves in Zachary kind of being like, and then this is also, if you want to take context away, this is you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Something else that like you were talking about, like not caring so much about these specific characters, and like okay, and that's like on the same page as you. Something that I noticed, especially today when I was reading the last like 150 pages, is that all the time Zachary is just saying, what?
He's so confused.
Like he's just like, I feel like he a lot of times like wasn't really saying much of anything. Like I just thought of this because you said like he's like, sorry, my cord is like going everywhere.
No, you're good.
He, like, we can insert ourselves in his place, and I feel like that's so true, because he wasn't like doing much or saying much of anything, so it could easily be anybody, you know what I mean? Like he would, like, the characters that have been wrapped up in this like harbor place for so long have all this lore, and they'll like say something, and then he's like, what? And then they elaborate, or they don't sometimes. And it's like, he never was asking sometimes he did ask specific questions, but I got a little bit annoyed at how kind of passive he was at times. Like just like not really like asking anything specific, just saying what over and over and over.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is also kind of a pet peeve I have when when you're reading these like more fantastical books that take place in fantasy type of environments and worlds, and it's just like you have kind of like the everyday type of character that's supposed to be human, like you and me, who have no idea what they're going into, and then like the whole entire time they kind of have to be like, this isn't gonna be the right word, but like a little stupid and clueless and like stumbling through it, and like
they're
that
kind of like just the vessel for the questions to be asked for us to be able to know.
Yeah, and like it's like sometimes I think it's fine, and I think in this it's kind of effective in the way that like we as a reader are also very confused, and so seeing Zachary also be like, take that break to be like, what are you talking about? It's like okay, good, like we're supposed to also feel what Zachary's feeling.
Yeah.
But after a while it's also kind of like it can get a little over repetitive and exhausting to kind of read.
I'm gonna flip my light on real quick.
Oh sure, it's getting dark.
I can stay on camera. Okay. Something else that got a little repetitive and exhausting for me was the word honey.
Oh my god,
my gosh.
So much honey.
I get it. I just felt like everything was described as honey, and I understand it's because it was.
Right.
But like I was so sick of reading it. I don't know. I was just like, is there any other way we can describe this? Like I just feel like everything was honey sweet or honey sticky or
yeah, that's so true actually.
And like there was a lot of descriptions of like,
I just opened the book and the first word my eyes landed on was honey.
Yeah, I know, it's probably on every single page. And like they would talk about like the scent of things or the taste of some of the cocktails, and everything was honey and clove, and like I feel like we got the same descriptions over and over and over.
Yeah.
And it stopped being effective for me, and it started just being repetitive in a, I don't understand why. It's like, usually you use repetition to make it very obvious or like make something stick out to the reader as this is important.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like I've been told over and over this is important. Like I don't know. It stopped being like, oh, they're reminding me that it's honey, and it started being like, okay, this again.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, yeah. I think specifically it probably really also stuck out to you because I think this book, like the thing that most people are going to take away from this book is like, wow, that was beautiful writing, like really great prose, and it's like, yeah, to be kind of like almost like annoyed by like word choice again and again is like it's gonna stick out to you more so than if like I don't know, it was something else. I don't.
Right. Well, and even if the book was 300 pages shorter, I would have read that word 300 times less or whatever, So it's just like,
yeah,
because the nature of it being so long, then that means I was reading the word so many times,
Yeah, that's a good point.
And same with like the bees.
The bees.
Like, who are the bees? I didn't get it.
The bees. I didn't get the bee thing either. Cause
like everything else kind of made sense, but
yeah, I am wearing my bee ring today.
Cute.
In honor of the bees.
That's so sweet.
I showed the people. But yeah. Yeah, I know. I was like so excited, low key, to like kind of come on here and be like, oh my god, and then like your namesake, like
yeah, I know
the bees.
But
then
actually,
also I was like.
I did love though, like the way that they talked, like hello Mr. Zachary Rollins, oh we're so excited, oh the story's ending and you're here because it's ending and you have the keys because it's ending.
Yeah, they're so mean. They're so mean.
Because it was kind of like humorous, and I feel like there wasn't like a lot of like humor going on in this book, and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree too. Like they kind of did give a bit of lightheartedness to the overall story.
Yeah. So were you able to like figure out like who people were before?
Sorry, my lights just fell.
Oh, continue. Like before it was like revealed. Do you know what I'm saying?
So I don't know. I actually think that the only The only one that I knew immediately was Simon. Like the second we met Simon, I was like, right. So like I know where this is going.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't think I really picked up on anything else.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Cause I feel like I got almost all of them.
Yeah,
like
go off, girl.
The first one that I had written down was on 107. I said, "Is this woman his mom?" And then page 110, I said, "Yep."
Wait, okay, yes,
You know?
yes. I forgot about that.
I just have so many notes because I just typed up all my notes that I put in my notes app, and I'm just seeing so many that are like, is this person? Is this person?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I liked that aspect of the book because I feel like I could theorize is not the right word, but I could like, what is the word that I'm looking for? Anyways, not guess, but like
connect,
infer, kind of. Yeah. Like before it was revealed and before it was obvious. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I liked that it was kind of like if you paid really close attention, you could be like, wait, I think I know what that is, but it wasn't like so obvious, blatantly obvious until, of course, it is obviously at some point said in the book. But it's like before that, I feel like a lot of times I could like kind of reveal that to myself, and I thought that was well done because I don't like when it's so painfully obvious, and I also don't like when you're kept in the dark until the very end. Oh, here's another text to show.
Sure.
You'll probably like. So at the end, well, close to the end, when Zachary goes, he like is kind of like walking up to his mom's house, and like Dorian's there, and he's like, "Come join the party." Like, "Oh, you're just having one of your fits. Like, it's okay. Like, we can just be together here." And then he's like, "Oh my gosh, like this isn't real. Like I know this isn't real because blah 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 blah." This is like in Gravity Falls, spoilers ahead, guys. When Mabel has her dream bubble that Gideon makes for her where everything's like perfect. And then like they're all in there, and then Wendy's like, "Wait, Dipper, maybe we could like be together here."
She was like, whoa.
And then Dipper's like, "There's no way this is real," because like like it was so Gravity Falls to me in that moment.
That's actually so true. That's funny.
There's nothing I love more than a connection.
Yeah, literally.
I was really glad though that at the end we finally got like Kat back in the story.
Me too. That was my favorite part, actually.
For so long I was like, is anybody worried about this guy?
I know. Yes. Okay, so that's what I think. My favorite parts of this story were when I felt like the characters were in some way interacting with each other. Like, again, like I thought the dynamics of the character were like my favorite part of the story, but like I feel like we just didn't get too much interaction. A lot of it was like they all had to be on their own solo journeys or whatever. Which like not really, but like also kind of, I don't know how to explain it. But like I liked it when Kat came back in like book 6 or part 6, and we were finally getting like that real emotional tie to like Zachary, and like that scene that she has with his mom where they're both like sitting there, and like they're two people who are deeply worried about where like their son or their friend is, but like neither one of them are willing to admit that like he could be dead, even though like Kat's talking about how like she feels deep down that there's something incredibly wrong, but like his mom is very much like, well, I know for a fact that like he's gonna come back because I was told by a psychic that like, this is my favorite line actually I think of the book, but he was like she was like, I was told by a psychic that I was gonna have 2 sons, and I was like that she was wrong because I only had 1 son, but then like now she knows that she needs to meet her son-in-law, so he's gonna come back, and like that's giving us like this connection. It's doing so much. It's giving us that connection from like Zachary's mom and Zachary and their relationship, and then we also get like this connection that like Kat is able to be a place of support for Zachary's mom, which I think is really beautiful. And then also it's like then we're also getting this Dorian and Zachary kind of like moment where like we're understanding that like how powerful their actual relationship is outside of just their chapters together, which I thought was really sweet. And so I just really like that. And then I also like that Kat was able to come back in and like be like, you know, like she kind of took the place for like the stories that like we had in previous parts. And I think also her diary entries gave a different type of what's
like
the word I'm
writing
thinking
style
of? Yeah, like writing style, and just like kind of like picked up the pace a bit, maybe from like a different type of pacing for that final part,
right?
Which I really liked. Like I liked going back and forth between those two chapters because I felt like I was getting to use different parts of my brain in some way, and so I appreciated that a lot.
Me too. And I think that the part before that, or something right before that, was like it was going back and forth between Zachary and Dorian. That was the hardest part for me to read.
Me too.
Because it was just like way too similar.
Yeah.
And like they were both kind of in deep dark places, and like I was just like because like the beginning parts when it was like Zachary and then like a chapter from this other book, like to me it was pretty easy to tell the difference. But that part was really hard. So but then going from like Zachary and Kat, it was like, okay, like
I got it,
we're back above water. Like
I almost told you before starting this, like, do not ask me what happened in part 5, because honestly it was like I was just going with it.
Thing that confused me that I still feel unclear about, and I feel like it was probably in the book and I just missed it, but I didn't really understand why the floor opened up in the heart, and like why it was crumbling, and then why it just like started like remending. I didn't really get that. That's the only part that I was like, wait, what? I was like, did it have to do with the doors getting closed, and it was just like,
think so.
The overall structure is crumbling because their connection to the outside world is crumbling.
I didn't think really so, but I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't really get what the catalyst was for that. So that was like I feel like while this was difficult to read, I feel like I could follow everything, but that was the one part that I just like
you were just like I don't
really
know
get. And then I didn't get why it started like remending. I don't know. I'm sure it probably said in there, but
I'm looking through my notes right now because I was also trying my best to like write out like plot beats.
Oh yeah.
Just because this was a really confusing book for me personally. Like and it was also a little. I already mentioned this, so sorry, but like a little boring to me. So it was really hard for me to kind of fully engage. And so I was like writing out what each chapter was about so that way I could kind of understand what was going on.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like that is also something that I honestly was just like, yeah, well, sure, heck yeah. Like whatever that means.
Yeah. The other part that I didn't really like a specific scene was like I didn't really like get it kind of was it's on page 346. Zachary asks Mirabelle, "What are you?" And then it's like her smile vanishes. She takes a step toward him, like she seems like mad at him, and she's like, "I'm a lot of things, but I'm not the reason you didn't open the door." Because he's like kind of figuring out that she's like fate or whatever. Yeah. But
I didn't like that scene.
She just like got so like
she got
aggressive.
Really mean.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't like this poor kid. You dragged this kid into this mess, and you expect him to not like have questions. Like, I didn't really. To me, that
didn't like
seemed
it.
out of character.
Yeah, I didn't like that part.
Yeah,
I don't understand it either. Like, maybe it's trying to like reveal something about Mirabelle and how like that outer persona that she kind of puts on, but like deep down inside she's really sick and tired of like because she's fate, and so she like maybe she's tired of people like secretly judging her and like placing blame on her, and maybe that's supposed to tell us something about her, but like I don't know, I didn't pick up enough on Like, I don't know if it was effectively done for me to like fully understand why she was doing it.
Yeah. It just, it felt like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then, which sometimes it makes sense for things to come out of nowhere, but it didn't feel rooted in like truth of what we had known about her before, you know?
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, it just seemed random. I just didn't really like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. When you mentioned her page number, I went to go find it, and then I remember that we have completely different books.
Yeah.
Like, me and Laura found out pretty quickly because I told her that I was on like page like 400, so I was like, just like a 100 and something pages left, and she was like, it should be under 100 pages, and I was like, no, mine's like at 570 pages. And I think yours is like 450 or 60.
494.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah. So that was kind of Well, it's like I always am writing my notes based on page numbers, and I was like, this is not going to be helpful to anybody, but I mean, unless you have my same copy.
No, I kind of wish I had. Were your like pages like pretty big?
Yeah. Here, I'll show you.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Like here it is next to my head.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Because I mean, I like my book because like if you're watching, I'll show you. The flop is pretty spectacular. Like that's pretty good. But like. I don't know. I think I wanted like a bigger book to kind of like
like
that.
Yeah, because there's a lot. You know, I had to multiple times, and I don't really ever do this, but I had to like put my hand over like the endings of pages, like especially when the chapters were ending, because there would be so many short sentences, and I would want to like jump ahead and read. And I literally like physically like put my hand on the page, so I like had to read line by line.
That's funny. That's really funny.
Looking at my notes. Oh yeah, you know how I said they use the word honey a million billion times? I also felt that way at the beginning when he first when he goes through the door and like at the same time like someone's trying to paint it, and so he gets paint on himself. They mentioned the coat was covered in paint so many times.
They really did. It's like we get it, like we understood the first time. Because it's like that's something so interesting, because it's like it's painting a mental image in your head for you immediately, and it's like the same item. Like I'm like, we don't need to continuously remind ourselves, because if we're engaging properly, we have that image in our heads, and kind of at sometimes there's like have you ever heard of that like rumor or like myth that like Dickens was paid per each word that he had to write in his stories, and that's why his writing can be really like overwritten almost. I was like sometimes I was like sometimes when I was reading this I was like it's giving a little bit like you're paid per word, but like I don't think it was entirely horrible, but like sometimes I was like, did we need to say it like that? Like I feel like the actual like content that we're supposed to be getting out of the sentence is getting lost in the sauce. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Because I think the luxurious writing was purposeful, but but then there were some times where I was like, okay, this is like it's just getting excessive with no real good
purpose.
Reason.
Yeah, exactly.
On my page 75, which is I don't even know what
I was gonna say, if you're trying to convert it for me, you don't have to do that. That's very kind though.
It's one of the pages that says like sweet sorrows, there are 3 paths, this is one of them. It talks about as long as there have been bees, there have been keepers. There was one keeper in the beginning, but then they had more. The keepers were here before the acolytes, before the guardians, before the keepers. There were bees and stories. There were keepers before there were keys. A fact usually forgotten, as they are so synonymous with keys. It is also forgotten that once there was a single key, now there's many copies. Like, this is the origin. Oh, the copies are worn on their necks, and then that they fall so often on their chest that like the impression gets like embedded on their flesh, and that's the origin of the tradition of having like the key like kind of branded onto them. No one remembers this now, a mark on a chest arising as an idea because of a mark on a chest. like that reminded me, this is one of my favorite like phenomenons to think about. I learned this like probably like in a nature documentary or a YouTube video or something so many years ago. But there is this like group of butterflies that would migrate over the ocean, and at least I think it was butterflies. Maybe birds or something. And at some point in the middle of the ocean, they would like make this sharp turn or something. And then like they'd be going in a straight line, and then they would go like dot 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 dot, like they would make this pattern that like didn't really make any sense, because they would end up back on their straight path. And so scientists were like studying their like migration pattern, and they're trying to figure out like why are they doing this. And then like they looked at, I don't know, geographical records or whatever, I don't know, and like millions of years ago there used to be like a volcano or something right there in the middle of the ocean. And so like the butterflies or birds or whatever they were like had to physically fly around this. And then like it's like they taught their, you know, like they taught their babies who taught their babies, and a million years later or whatever, I could be telling the story not exactly right, but like they still do that same pattern even though like that isn't there anymore. And it's like, but that is just like their sort of tradition, like that is just like what they do, and they do it because all the butterflies before them did it, so that's the right thing to do. And that made me think of this, like this page talking about like there was one key, but then they all had a key, and then that key like fell on their neck so much that it made the little imprint. And then they're like, well, let's just make the imprint. And like they, now that's just like part of their ceremony or tradition, is to like brand the key on them. And they don't really need it for any reason anymore, but it's just like part of, that's just like, well, that's what we do. You know what I mean? I don't know.
That's so beautiful.
I like noticing that, like,
text to world.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry.
Exactly.
No, but that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that, but I really love that. I love that comparison.
Yeah.
And I love that you compared it to, I mean, like, actually, never mind. I'm not going to say this. Okay. Retract. Anyway.
I should just make a an auxiliary podcast called Text to Something. I wrote on page 16. So there's this little part where he says, reading a novel is like playing a game where all the choices have been made for you ahead of time by someone who is much better at that game. Though he sometimes wishes choose your own adventure novels would come back into fashion. And he's like kind of talking about how he should be like, you know, like playing his games for his thesis or whatever. And it just made me think of, remember Bandersnatch? Just made me think
the Black
of
Mirror episode.
Yeah.
It,
like, I don't know, so much of this, like, and I actually, like, there was like a point in this book where I thought he was just gonna this was just gonna be like a figment of his video game or like something like that.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
I can see that. Yeah.
Like, anyways, I don't know. Just made me think of Bandersnatch because I feel like so much of this, I mean, and this was like right at the beginning of the book, but like, are we making our own choices and like that sort of thing? And I feel like there's kind of some themes of that throughout, of like, you know, he like that part where Mirabelle gets mad at him and she's like, you know, I didn't make the choice, you're the one that made the choice to not go through the door, don't blame that on me, you know. But then it's like you always think of fate as being like, doesn't matter what you would have done, fate was the guiding hand, you know. But it's like, I don't know. Just thinking thoughts out loud.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Yeah, I guess it is kind of like trying to display both types of arguments, where like it's like that age old thing where it's like, well, are we in charge of our actions, or like is fate the one in charge? And like that's a huge question that looms over this story. And specifically Zachary, I think he's consistently looking for like agency internally in his story. And like I think that was one of those moments specifically where like, well, at least with like Mirabelle, but it happens multiple times where like he's having to choose again and again what his story is going to be.
Right, because he at the end he gets that piece of paper that is a continuation of his story, and he reads one sentence and then he throws it in the fire.
Exactly.
And he's like, I don't care what it says. Actually, I'm just gonna do what I think should be next. And I was not expecting that. Like, I really wasn't. I thought he would want to read it.
Me too. And I think that's actually like, because like what I wanted in this so much was like I wanted like a clear character arc, I think. And I feel like it's like there is a character arc there, but I think it's like very minor, if that makes sense, or like at least just not the main focus of the story. I think like that goes to show that he really did grow as a character, because it's something that you don't think that he was like. Zachary, as we met him in the first chapter, I don't think he would have been one to throw the paper in the fire. But like, I think he learned a lot through the Starless Sea internally, and he took that to be like, okay, well, yeah, I'm gonna be the one to choose my fate. Like, I don't need to know all the answers, right? Because of my anxieties or whatever.
Right, because the whole thing at the beginning was he went on this whole journey. He went to the convention or the ball or whatever, because he's like, this book is written about me and I want to know what's supposed to happen next. Like, why doesn't it say? And then it's like, now he finally gets to know, and he's realized like that's no longer what he actually wants or what he needs. You know?
Beautiful. Actually, this is so random too. It has nothing to do with what we were just talking about.
That's fine.
My friend who loves this book and I were talking about how in the beginning, because she told me, she was like, oh, there's a Harry Potter reference, a few in this, but at the beginning you find out that he's a Hufflepuff. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Like that's cool. But I was like, oh yeah, he kind of gives Hufflepuff energy. And then we found out, and I texted her, I was like, fake fan, because he's actually a Ravenclaw canonically in the book. and I was like, so he's not a Hufflepuff, and we were like, this is so crazy because he gives such strong Hufflepuff energy. Where it's like I think he would do a lot for like he's taking almost like a thankless journey, it feels like. But now that we're talking about it, I'm like, wait, that is actually so like Ravenclaw energy. Ew, I hate that I'm talking about Harry Potter. Sorry. but like I'm like, wait a minute, like this is kind of a Ravenclaw pursuit, because he wants to know. Like he's actively I don't care about the journey, I need to know the destination in a way. And that's kind of a Ravenclaw thing.
And like he's read these books where there's this unfinished story of like Eleanor and Simon are not together and this sword needs to be returned, and someone tells him like 3 things have gone missing, and he's like, well, like these things need to be righted, you know what I mean? So that's just like the correct thing to do, so I guess I have to do it. Exactly. That is so Ravenclaw. Anyway, how did you feel about the pop culture references in this? They were fine. I didn't really...
You didn't care?
Yeah, they didn't really affect me much. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's so true, and I also wasn't like annoyed by it. It was just like, okay, that's fine. It was kind of interesting to me because, I mean, we've talked a lot about our feelings about pop culture in books in previous episodes. Yeah. And it felt like for me, one thing I will say that I did appreciate was like every kind of pop culture reference we got was like a book reference. Like it wasn't like Taylor Swift's name was just dropped into the text, you know what I mean? Like it was like, for the most part, it was like she was like referencing like books like Harry Potter or like Donna Tartt or like Where the Wild Things Are, etc. Right. And so it felt like it was kind of more so used as like a nod to like readers to be like, hey, I'm one of you. Like, do you like this book reference? Like, this is a book about books and in all aspects kind of. But like also it felt like so interesting to me because I was like, with the way like the story was written, first of all, I kept having to remind myself that like we
are kind of operating in present day. It felt like a very timeless story, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, we're in 2015 technically. And then you were reminded with like the pop culture references,
Right.
and like just specific other things. But I was like, this is so interesting because it feels like the writing is so like otherworldly in a way.
What does
And then like
esoteric mean?
yeah, oh, esoteric's a good one.
Okay,
Esoteric would just be like like a different, unique kind of
Okay.
like.
That's just the word that came to mind, but I wasn't exactly sure if
that's
it made
that's
sense.
exactly that's it. Kind of like it's like it kind of works, I guess,
Yeah.
for this like the writing I felt maybe was too esoteric for the modern day pop culture references that we were
see.
getting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe also because it's like the ones that really bugged me, like I don't care if you're mentioning F. Scott Fitzgerald because that's a dude who's been around for 100 years and like everyone
Right.
knows about him. That could take place in literally any time. But the ones that I was like, was like I actually didn't like the Harry Potter references. I know I just mentioned them, but like I kind of didn't like it. And then like Secret History, kind of there was a whole chapter about the Secret History, and like Dorian was reading it at a bar.
Yeah, and like I don't even know what that is.
Really? Oh, it's like it's kind of like it was kind of like a book. A lot of people kind of cite it as like one of the founding fathers of like dark academia. So like it came out in the 1990s. Yeah, it came out in the 1990s. It got really popular. I think the reason why I was kind of taken away from it was because it got really popular online as recent years. And so it came out in the 1990s. So technically it could be like a more so timeless book. Like it's not like she's like mentioning like a book that came out like A Court of Thorns and Roses or something. Like that would be crazy. But it just felt like I was like, this is like too timely. And like there was no way for Erin Morgenstern to have known that while she was writing it because she could not predict TikTok. But like I was just like, I don't know. So like that was something where I like physically had to like remove any like negative thought I had towards it because I was like, I don't think this is like actually as deep as my brain's making it.
Yeah. And when I read that part, I was like, oh, I guess this is probably a book people know.
Yeah, it's really popular.
I never heard of it. I don't really see. I guess I don't really see a lot of the
book talk.
Yeah, it's just like not what's on my feed, I guess. But yeah, it was interesting though because the library, like the underground library that we're in, like I feel like it's like unclear what books are down there because the books that we know are like Sweet Sorrows, Fortunes and Fables, and the Ballad of Eleanor and Simon. And it's like those books are all like about actual people or like and like about that world or that place. So I was left wondering, like, are all of the books in there like about the harbor and about the Starless Sea, or are they the things that we would find in our libraries too, like normal books? And so I like wasn't sure, and so then like the mentioning of like quote unquote regular books felt a little bit like incongruent with like the fact that we're reading these Sweet Sorrows, you know what I mean?
Fictional
like
ones.
It was like, wait, like obviously the regular books are, whether they're in the harbor or not, they're obviously still existing like in the 2015 New York. But that was like a little bit, that was my part of the pop culture that I was like felt a little bit dissonant, like you know, that's because it felt like the books that we were actually like getting into were so, well, they weren't real, so like they were, you know, they were of this world and not of our world. So then when we're talking about books that are like of regular world, it was just like, this
is gonna be a book that focuses mostly on like not real stories. Like every book almost that you're gonna bring up should also kind of follow that path in a way.
Right.
It's like almost like when you're in like a fantasy world, and like they want to like bring up like like, it's like, you can't just bring up Taylor Swift in a fantasy world. Like, she doesn't exist there. You know what I mean? And it's not like, I mean, this is obviously taking place in real time, but yeah, I understand why it's like a little bit like disconnecting or like.
Along with that, I thought it was a very convenient choice that he left his phone at the hotel and then like and then it like didn't really work in the underworld. Like I was kind of glad because I didn't want to be reading text messages. You know what I mean? So, but it was like
adds to just like that whole mystery of it. Like he can't get in touch with like, and like, because it comes back later in part 6 when we see his mom and his friend being like, where the heck is he? Like, it's like he needs to be completely transported to this whole other dimension or like realm where like he can't reach anybody from the real world. And like that adds to that entire fantasy aspect.
Like, I also thought I feel like along with some of your feelings you expressed at the beginning, like something that was a little bit of a dislike for me was like there was just so much emphasis on like the bees and the key and the sword and the crown and the heart and like the feather or something. And like, so I know that I said earlier like not everything has to be explained, but that like the way that I think really the issue for me was things got so repetitive and it was never clear why. And so this like the repetition of these symbols, and it was just like oh, it's important because it's the symbol that's showing up everywhere. But it's like, but why is that like I was just like, it felt like we were reading too, because I think that if it would have been like more subtle, if the symbols would have been more subtle, then to me it would have made sense that we didn't get like all this like backstory and explanation of like all the details, because it's just like, well, that's just the way it is, you know, like kind of what I was saying earlier, like sometimes in fairy tales like things are just the way they are because that's the way they are. But I'm like, if you're gonna take the time to spell it out, like spell out we're seeing these symbols here, here, and here, and there, and there, it's like, why can't we then take the time to know why? It was like the symbols were chosen because they were like I don't want to say the typical, but like it's like, oh, well, these are the symbols that any book lover would be like, like, oh, the keys and
the swords.
You do know what I'm saying? Like I'm like, it seemed like, okay, it kind of reminds me of, and I'm gonna see if I can explain this correctly to make this like connection.
Okay.
You know my favorite book from elementary school called Palace of Mirrors? You don't have to remember what happens.
Famously, yes.
But in that book, they have to like hide the princess or whatever because like evil forces are after her. They always say like the evil forces, which I think is just like another kingdom that like wants to kill. I don't really remember. You know, it's just kingdoms trying to have the most money or whatever. But I remember reading that at 11 years old and being like, but who are these evil forces? Like, but that just like sounds like, oh, like, whoa, the evil forces. And so I always felt like really annoyed with the writing in that, and because I was like, why am I supposed to just take this because it was written? And that's how, like, I don't know if this is making sense, but that's how I felt about the symbols. Like, I feel like it was just like, okay, what are like the 6 most bookish symbols that we can think of, and then let's like make them work into the story. Does that make sense at all?
Yes. No, I 100% see what you're talking about. And what's interesting is like, I think subconsciously I also had this issue, but like for the most part I was like, sure. I was just like, yeah. Like, as I said, by the way, you guys, as I got past like page 300, I was like fully just here like, okay, let's do it. One thing that I did like about this, like you just said, it's about a person who, or sorry, it's by a person who loves books, for people who love books, about people who love books. And so it's like truly like the book lover's paradise. I think it's like so often, and maybe this is just because I have an extensive love and history and relationship with romance books. And so it's like typically I think a lot of those books are made for book lovers in the way that like they're going to be like, oh, and then like, of course our main character is a librarian, or of course our main character works at a bookstore, or she's a writer or editor. Like just like her whole life is books because that's like she loves books and she went into a career for books. I like that this book is kind of taking that it's taking a different direction where like we meet Zachary and immediately he's like, I love books. I kind of sometimes think I should get my master's in literature, but like it's like I think I would also become bored of that. I think I'd be bored of anything I do.
Yeah.
Which is so real. But I like that he's just a guy who just like likes books, is not making his whole life about books, but yet the whole story and his whole life in this story is about stories and books. And it's kind of like it's like showing the reader a bit like, yeah, like this is everybody. Like everybody forms connections with stories or has relationships with stories. And it's like it's not so black and white as what I typically see in these books that I think are more catered towards book lovers. Everyone's life is about stories.
So if you like that theme,
sure.
You're probably going to like 10,000 Doors of January.
I know. I really want to read that. I think it would actually be... Because here's the thing. Here's another thing I was realizing as I was reading this is I'm actually not the biggest fan of magical realism.
Yep, I know.
Yeah. Like, it's like, I've said it before, but I really don't. I realized with this, I was like, I think it's just like, unfortunately, too many elements that I don't vibe with. And like, you know, that's just not going to be my cup of tea. But I think like Alex E. Haro, specifically, like I already know I like her writing, and like you told me that you like the characters in that book,
and this book that we just read reminds me a lot of 10,000 Doors of January, but I think 10,000 Doors of January is better. Like like I think that a lot of the problems you're having while reading this you're not gonna have
10,000
in that one. Yeah.
Well, sweet. I'm gonna boost it up on my TBR because I kind of need something.
It's like, yeah, like I don't want to give too much away, but this sort of, there's other worlds and there's ways that we can get to them is like very much in 10,000 Doors, but and I would say, I think I told you before, it's for people that love writing and words and stories, but I think that this book is a little bit way more about the atmosphere and the description of the place and the la 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 la. Actually, they reminded me so much of each other that I was like, let me see when these were published, because like this is feeling a little
really
suspicious. Yeah, and
this came first, didn't it?
But I think they were both published in 2019.
Oh, 2019.
I think. Okay. I could be wrong, but I thought when I looked it up, they were both published the same year.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I was like, what was in the air in 2017 or whatever when they were writing them? Yeah, like I don't know.
That's so true. That pre-COVID magical time. Take me back.
My favorite story was the one, let me see if I wrote it down. The one where the girl goes to like the inn when it's like snowing outside, and she like stays there for like a few days because it's like too dangerous to leave, and like they're kind of like maybe falling in love, but then she's like, no, I have to go. That was like my favorite like standalone excerpt. And and I also really, really liked like Eleanor and Simon's whole thing.
That was my favorite story, I think.
Yeah. And like so I feel like kind of what I was saying earlier about like sometimes in fairy tales like things are just the way they are because they're the way they are. Like I think about that in like sometimes in fairy tales like the prince and the princess just fall in love because they just fall in love. And it's like we don't always have deep character analysis for why they're so compatible, then la la la. But it's just like, oh, I'm so in love with the prince. Oh, I'm so in love with the princess. And I feel like some of these stories were like that, like the Simon and Eleanor. It's like they just saw each other and they just fell in love. And it did not bother me at all. In fact, I really, really liked it.
Yeah.
But I felt a little bit like I was rooting for Zachary and Dorian, but I was a little like I was kind of unsatisfied with like, but why are they in love? And so
I know, I feel like that happened really fast.
It's not like a critique of the whole book, because I can't say like there should always be good reason, because I don't feel that way. Yeah. As evident by the fact that I really liked the Simon and Eleanor one, and I got it and I believed it and I was on board with it, and the one where she's at the inn. But I felt like, I don't know, with Zachary and Dorian, I was like, okay, but wait, why did it, like, why? You know?
Yeah. You know, because I really liked Zachary and Dorian's kind of relationship at the beginning. And then, like, I feel like it just kind of came together really quickly, and I also felt unsatisfied with like the reasons for it. I will say I really like that scene of, we've already talked about it, but like that scene of him in the bar and he's like watching Zachary and he's like reading the secret history, and I think like the line that like kind of like made me be like, you know what, okay, I'm gonna root for them. It's like he's like looking, so he's talking about the secret history and about how like in that book these characters are in this like completely all-encompassing relationship with one another. Like it's like this very, very like intense friendship slash, could it be romantic? I don't know. I haven't read the secret history, by the way. This is just me knowing what I know, and then also like what this book is saying. But anyway, but when Zachary's at this bar and he's talking with his friends, Dorian like is examining him. And there's a line that says each of them are capable of the intensity, he's talking about, of this friendship that he's comparing them to. Mm-hmm. But this is not the right grouping. And to me, I was like, okay, that makes me like, I was like so sold on them in that moment, because I was like, first of all, this is pining for sure, because he's like just subconsciously like love at first sighting this man, not even realizing it, and like just being like, okay, so that he could be a very like all-encompassing person to be involved with. Yeah. But just he's not with the right group yet. And then it's also like, I think it's like kind of cementing how like they have this like, he sees something in Zachary that he has in him, which is like kind of like that loneliness that they both kind of walk through the world with. But neither of, like, you wouldn't be able to tell on first meeting. And I think that Dorian being able to immediately clock Zachary and like what his demeanor is, he's like you can tell he's an anxious person, but he has this confidence when he's talking to his friends. Right. But I know that he's not fully giving his full self. Yeah. It's like, personally to me, I'm like, okay, so they're seeing each other as they are. Like Dorian, I think that sold me on that love at first sight insta-trope that we have here. Yeah. And then I also just like yearning, and I felt like that was pretty good yearning. But I do agree. I was like, I want them, like, I feel like it was like they were together and then pulled apart, and then together and then pulled apart, and it was like the moments together, I just wanted more, so that I could fully feel that relationship with them. Right. And I don't think we got it so much, but I was still happy with their ending. I was like, okay, yeah, might as well. Yeah, because I was curious, like, what is this heart gonna come back for? You know, like, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's just kind of intense. True. But I liked it. I liked, like, overall in general, while it was sometimes long to read, and, you know, I thought it was a really incredible work of making all these stories intertwine and come full circle and end together. And like, and the way of writing it with like the present day with the book excerpts back and forth, like I thought that was very cool and very different, and I'm sure not easy to accomplish. No, you know, I was reading this and I was like, well, first of all, I really like this author's brain. I think she was like incredibly smart. And like I like being able to tell how clever like authors are through just their prose and like how they're writing a story. And like you could really tell with this book. But like also I was like when I was reading it at times I was like, man, this must have like taken brain power because if like even for me reading this, like I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, imagine coming up with this in your head and then just like putting it to paper. Like props to you for sure.
Yeah.
I do. She has another book called The Night Circus, which is more like I think more people have read it and like praised it. And I want to read that because I hear go.
Oh no, finish your thought. My thought comes after yours, sorry.
I hear that it's similar to the Starless Sea, but like more cemented in like this like romantic love story that like is supposed to be the main plot. But like,
that's
also,
gonna
like,
pull Danielle in for sure.
You know me. But like yeah, I hear it's like this very emotional kind of like love story that that like takes place with the same amount of whimsy. And so I'm hoping that like if there are characters more so at the forefront of her writing, I think that might pull me in more.
Yeah.
Because I liked the characters. I liked when we were able to be more so with the characters in this book than anything else.
Yeah. My friend that has read this book, she said that she read The Night Circus first, and she said she liked the Starless Sea more. But she said I think it might be because the writing is just so intense and so different that when she read The Night Circus, it was kind of how we are right now. Like, oh my gosh, like I wasn't expecting this. And so then when she read The Starless Sea, it was like she kind of knew more what to expect. So she's like, I don't know, like, she's like, I might have felt the opposite way if I read the other one first. So
interesting. Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. I think I'm gonna need a little bit of a break from Erin Morgenstern. Peace and love to her for sure, but like this was a toughie. So I'll try The Night Circus in the future.
Yeah,
and I'll report back.
Okay. Well, I feel like that's kind of all my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm actually really happy we had this conversation because I was pretty intrigued to see like what pulled you and what you liked from this book. Because I knew that you had a different opinion than me.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to hear, like, I understand kind of. I like hearing a different person's perspective.
Yeah.
Because I don't like disliking things, you guys. Like, I'm actually very much somebody who prefers to like things. I do not give off hater energy.
Right.
So this was tough for me. But with peace and love, if you guys loved this book, I hope you guys know I respect your opinions and thank you so much for listening to this podcast.
Yeah. True. Yeah, I mean, I definitely had critiques and I definitely like blah 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 blah. But like overall I liked it. And I really did like the excerpts. Like
Yeah.
So well, everyone, thanks for listening to Read the Last Page. Our music and illustrations were created by the wonderful Sage Timothy.
If you don't know our schedule yet, we host our book club episodes on the first Wednesday of each month. So for next month, we will be reading Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume. That episode will be out on the first Wednesday of January, so be sure to pick up a copy and read it by then if you want to discuss it with us.
Before we get to the last page, you'll see us in 2 weeks for a catch-up episode where it's just your besties talking, and you can listen to us on your podcast platform of choice, or if you'd rather watch your podcast, you can find us on YouTube at Read the Last Page. And for now, we want to say bye from B
and Dan.
Bye.